Edward Said's Covering Islam. Edward Said's Covering Islam. How the Media and the Experts Determine How We See the Rest of the World, 1981, as a critical analysis of how Western media and intellectuals portray Islam. Said argues that Islam is often misrepresented in a way that reinforces stereotypes and justifies political agendas. One. Purpose of the book. Edward Said wrote Covering Islam to expose how the Western media, especially in the U.S., creates a negative image of Islam. He argues that biased reporting leads to misunderstandings and tensions between the West and Muslim-majority countries. Two. The role of Western media. Said claims that Western media presents Islam as violent, backward, and a threat to Western civilization. He argues that news outlets focus only on negative events like terrorism and extremism while ignoring the diversity and richness of Islamic culture. Example: if a crime is committed by a Muslim, the media emphasizes their religion, but if a non-Muslim commits the same crime, religion is not mentioned. Three. Political influence on media. Said explains that media coverage of Islam is influenced by politics, especially the interests of Western governments. He argues that media narratives help justify U.S. and European policies in the Middle East, such as military interventions and support for authoritarian regimes. Example: the Iranian Revolution, 1979, was presented as proof that Islam is dangerous, while the role of Western interference in Iranian politics was ignored. Four. The problem of experts on Islam. Said criticizes so-called experts who appear on TV or write articles about Islam without deep knowledge. Many of them are not Muslims and rely on stereotypes rather than real understanding. He contrasts them with scholars who study Islam academically but are rarely given media attention. Example: a political analyst who knows little about Islam is more likely to be interviewed on the news than a professor of Islamic studies. Five. Islam is a monolithic, single entity. Western media often treats Islam as if it is the same everywhere, ignoring its diversity. In reality, Islam has different sects, e.g., Sunni and Shia, cultural variations, and interpretations. However, the media presents all Muslims as if they think and act the same way. Example: the beliefs of a Muslim in Indonesia, the world's largest Muslim country, may be very different from those of a Muslim in Saudi Arabia, but the media does not show this diversity. Six. Islam and terrorism. Said argues that the media constantly links Islam with terrorism, creating fear and mistrust. He explains that while terrorism exists in many religious and political groups, Islam is unfairly singled out. This selective focus makes people believe that violence is a natural part of Islam. Example: a terrorist attack by a Muslim gets worldwide coverage, but violence by non-Muslims, such as white supremacists, is often downplayed. Seven. Historical context is ignored. Said points out that media coverage of Islam often ignores historical and political reasons behind conflicts. Instead of looking at causes like colonialism, economic issues, or foreign interventions, the media blames Islam itself. Example: the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is often framed as a religious war rather than a political struggle over land and rights. Eight. Islamophobia and its consequences. The negative portrayal of Islam leads to Islamophobia, fear and hatred of Muslims. This results in discrimination, violence, and policies that target Muslim communities, such as travel bans or surveillance programs. Example: after 9/11, many Muslims faced racism and suspicion, even if they had nothing to do with terrorism. Nine. The need for a more balanced approach. Said calls for more responsible journalism that presents Islam fairly and accurately. He encourages deeper research, inclusion of Muslim voices, and recognition of Islam's complexity. Conclusion. Covering Islam is a powerful critique of how the Western media shapes public perception of Islam. Said urges readers to question biased narratives and seek a more informed understanding of the Muslim world.